You're listening to the ADHD and Me podcast. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jen, and we're so excited to share the strategies we've learned while navigating life as neurodivergents.
Each week, we'll discuss topics such as relationships, careers, mental health, and a lot more.
You'll get two unique perspectives on life's challenges, successes, and everything in between.
So without further ado, here's this week's episode. Welcome back to the ADHD and Me podcast. My name's Joe.
And I'm Jen.
And we're bringing you part 2 of our series called Your Life as a Video Game. In case you missed it, last week we covered in part 1 health points, how to figure out your health points, how to add mods to your life to make things more easier in different areas. So we're really excited because part 2 is going to bring a lot more different tips and tricks that you can use in your life.
I wrote down what I'm going to say because you guys know that I don't remember anything. So in this episode, we will be talking about living life in multiplayer mode. We'll be comparing multiplayer mode with how we navigate friendships. I think it's time for story time.
Story time. So multiplayer mode, as you know, can mean many things in many games. You know, it could be 2 players, it could be 5, you could be playing with 7 players. As games have progressed, multiplayer mode is pretty big. I have different gaming stories in my life. You know, first when you were younger, you could really only play 2 player. But once the internet came around and we had cooler games and Xboxes and PlayStations, multiplayer mode became very fun. So for me, that was Call of Duty. So this is college age years. This is 20, 21-year-old Joe, maybe 19. And
Played it all the time. And the funny thing about that game is when you buy the game, there's a single player mode. They call it the campaign mode with a story. And it's okay. Sometimes I don't even think some of the Call of Duty games I ever played the single player mode, because the multiplayer mode is so much more fun, because not only are you playing with your friends, they have headsets, you can speak to them. You can bully other people like they did.
Listen, unless you can prove it in a court of law. And so it was so much fun playing multiplayer mode Call of Duty, because you could pretty much just feel like you were chilling in your house with your friends. Yeah. But you pretty much if you had a good group of friends, you guys would win a lot. Sometimes if I played by myself in multiplayer mode, or you play online with strangers, you don't know who you're playing with. They don't have your back.
Or my favorite thing is when he's playing. Sometimes I'll play Baldur's Gate on this computer here, and he'll play in that chair Fortnite, and he has his headset on, and all of a sudden he brings his mic down. He's like, "Yes," and he throws it up, and I'm like, "What did you do?" And he's like, "A little boy asked me if I had a mic, and I told him yes."
And then I shut the mic off.
He's like, "Do you have a mic? Nobody talks to me." And he's like, "Yeah, leave me alone."
Yes, I do, and I'm in my 30s. Goodbye.
Meanwhile, it's a very drastic change of who you were in your Call of Duty days, where all you did was talk and
make kids cry.
For
other reasons.
But yeah, so it's all to say that multiplayer mode is basically more fun when you do it with your friends. And so that's kind of how life is. Life is better with your friendships in it, and it adds more flavor to your life. I wrote here, it's through human interaction and support that we not only enjoy the game better, but you have someone to heal you when you're down. They can warn you if someone is coming up behind you. When you play together, you can find things that the other friend needs in the game and give it to them. Or in Fortnite, they can drive the car while you are taking out goobers on the roof. that's he drives and I like to, shoot around on the roof. I don't hit anyone. But those bushes.
Those bushes really felt it. So we're going to be talking a little bit about Jen's favorite game called Baldur's Gate 3, which has a multiplayer mode, but also is very much surrounding about having to work towards a goal with a group of people in your life, similar to how you navigate life as friends. So why don't you tell people a little bit more about the game so that they have context as we go into the next segment?
Yeah. Well, it's the best game of all time. I have about almost 700 hours in this game.
Wow.
Clocked. So, and I still haven't gotten all the achievements. So the replayability in this game is very good. It is a role-playing video game. And if you know about D&D, it's basically Dungeons and Dragons, but in video game form. You go on adventures, you go on quests, there's side quests, main quests, there's companions, there's relationships. It's fascinating, and it was the only video game that I got so obsessed with. It became my personality for a bit. I even have a Baldur's Gate Instagram, and it made me cry multiple times. I've never wept over a video game. I think the last video game I wept over was Unpacking on the Switch.
Yeah.
Oh my good. The way I sobbed in that game. And that's supposed to be a cozy game where you're just unpacking moving boxes, but you get to know like their life as you're unpacking. And so like you see, sorry, I'm going on a rant, but like you see that you're like basically unpacking their boxes and they moved in with their significant other. And then the next level, you're unpacking boxes and you find out as you're doing it, slowly but surely, that this is their childhood home and they broke up with the person that they moved in with. And I was like, oh no. So anyway, what was I talking about?
You were talking about Baldur's Gate 3.
So the question is, what does Baldur's Gate 3 have anything to do with friendships?
Good question.
I put it here. The entire game is based on the relationships with those around you, whether it be close friends, people that you shop with at the supermarket, everyone that you come in contact with. Each companion that you have in the game that you play with has a backstory, and you need to create bonds with them and put in the work as a friend so that your companions trust you enough to open up. They have approval meters, which is really cool, so you can see like what that person thinks of you and how far you are in the approval meter. And there are things that you do in the game that one of them will either approve or disapprove. So like, for example, I saved a little tiefling child in the Grove, and I saved her from getting bitten by a snake. And Astarion in the game will disapprove of it because he's cynical and he didn't want me to save the girl. So that's just like an example. You get to know everyone's personalities based off their reactions of your actions. So just like the companions in Baldur's Gate have a backstory, everyone around you has a backstory in real life. Most of it you don't even know about, but it is through time and your actions that you become closer to those around you. And I have a quote from Waldo Emerson, and he says, "The only way to have a friend is to be one."
That's a really good quote, and it's true. I mean, that is the most basic part of your friendship, is that it's not a one-way street, because if you have a friendship where you're constantly giving or they're constantly taking, it's not really a friendship at that point.
Yeah, and it also takes patience. Like, I had to have a lot of patience with a lot of my companions in Baldur's Gate because they wouldn't open up till Act 2, the end of Act 2 or Act 3. And that's when you really get to know them and their history and past and figure out why they are the way that they are. And I think same goes for human interactions, just having just the patience and just the empathy and being there for them, getting to know them more, and just being a good friend. You can't like just expect good friendships around you if you're not, putting out good friend vibes. You know what I mean? Next thing about Baldur's Gate, which is equal to real life, is almost every NPC you meet has a purpose. Just like every person you encounter can have an impact, whether you are aware of it or not. This in the game got me so emotional, and I'm not going to give you spoilers, but I will let you know that almost every NPC in Quest has a reason for it in Act 3.
So, quick aside,
yes,
there are people out there who are not down with the lingo.
Okay, what did I do again?
NPC, explain what that is.
Non-playable character.
Yes, a non-playable character. I don't know why you had to do hand motion or sound.
That's just
yes,
who I am.
That's a non-playable character in a game, which in life it's actually just your friends. I mean,
you can't control your friends.
You can't control them, so they're the non-playable.
Yes, exactly.
characters.
So that is what NPC is. So I put here, be a positive light to those around you. You don't know the impact you can have on someone's life, even if it's just a compliment. And I put here, Joe makes fun of me because I compliment strangers all the time. All the time. And I used to be embarrassed of it. He's embarrassed of it. I don't care. I don't care anymore.
It's not even that I'm embarrassed of it anymore. I just know
we're embarrassed.
I know it's coming every time, and I almost
all the time.
No,
most of the time.
And I play a little game in my head, and I'm like, okay, what is she gonna compliment today? Is it gonna be the eyeglasses?
It's not every single person, Joseph Thomas.
It's almost every single person.
Well, I'm a positive light on the community.
And I'm just, your brain really locks onto something real quick, and you're ready to compliment.
I have more to say about that. Okay,
please.
I put, if I like something about someone, I'm going to tell them, whether I know them or not. I don't feel weird about it because what you do and say makes an impact. You don't know what day they've had. You don't know what's going on at home. You don't know their own insecurities. You don't know anything about this person. But to have a stranger say to you, oh, wow, like your eyes are really pretty. Or wow, like I love your glasses. I do that a lot because there's a lot of cool glasses out there. Or I love your tattoo. Or if you hear someone at like an open mic night and they have a beautiful voice, tell them that they have a beautiful voice. Or even in my Baldur's Gate Instagram, I became like internet friends with a few artists, and whenever they post, I'm hyping them up in the comments, and I'm like, this art is unreal. You're so talented. And it means a lot to them.
But to that point, it's a good habit to build up with the strangers, because that's gonna then
stranger danger.
Well, yeah, with these folks you meet, because then that is gonna naturally become a habit that you actually then do in your friendships. Like if you're gonna be asking some random person how their day is, it's a good habit to build in, because then you have actual friends in your life, and it's good to check in on them. And
well, don't get it twisted. I'm not asking how their day's going.
I know. I'm just saying it's not. I'm
not looking to have. Yes, I'm not looking to have like full conversations with these people. And if it happens, it does. But because like I'm an introvert, but I see what you mean. Like just in real friendships, just doing that, and like I want people to know that like it's from a genuine place. It's just who I am, like to my core. If Joe did it randomly and was just like, "Oh, I like your jeans. I like your hair," and he did it all over, I would be like,
very out of character.
Are you all right? Is something wrong? But with me, it's just, I don't know. I just find a lot of joy in making someone smile. I have a story. It's quick. I won't be long. This is off the cuff. Basically, I remember on the Starbucks drive-through line, the car in front of me was berating the barista. Sounds like a
2004 alternative rock band.
She was berating the barista. She was a level 10 Karen, fully evolved, okay? And she was berating the barista, and I could hear the screams from my car. By the time I got up there, I gave them a $5 bill, and I was like, put this in the tip jar. I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. You guys don't deserve to be treated this way. And they literally were like, I'm about to cry. Like, they were like, thank you so much for your kindness. And they were in shock that I did that. And then they gave me a drink for free. And I didn't expect anything in return. But it's just through kindness to those around you, make the NPCs feel great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Baldur's Gate 3, there are 3 acts in the game. Okay. And just like in life, you have Act 1 friends, Act 2 friends, Act 3 friends. You could have a friend that has stood the test of time from Act 1, 2, and 3. You could have friends that you just had in Act 3. And this is just an example of different seasons of friends throughout your life, through high school to actually elementary school, high school, college. In Acts 1, 2, and 3 in Baldur's Gate, you can see the changes in your relationships throughout the campaign, and the people that you are companions with, friends with in Baldur's Gate are completely different people than they were in Act 1 because of their character arc, their redemption arc, right? So you're all growing together. That also happens in real life, that you can have a changing nature of friends in different seasons of your life, or you can have ones that will grow with you. So I found a really cool quote in this book that I am reading, How to ADHD by Jessica McCabe. This book is fantastic. I highly recommend. 5 out of 5 stars. So this area talks about how people with ADHD or neurodivergence in general struggle with the layers of relationships and friendships. We tend to not understand that there are steps to it. That's why when you meet someone with ADHD and you don't know them really well, they're info dumping on you. And all of a sudden they're like, well, when I was 3 years old, my papa left me and I only had one.
So basically what you're saying is that they
know your trauma.
They skip the small talk.
Yes, they skip the small talk. They skip like certain things. But this person here, disability advocate Judith Snow, writes that there is a circle of support. So there are multiple layers. If you are watching, there are the different circles in a graph. But if you are not watching, I will just tell you what they are. So there's a small, tiny, tiny circle in the middle of this chart, and it's the circle of intimacy. This includes the people closest to us who know us on a deep level and who we can't imagine our lives without, such as immediate family members, our partner, or our best friend. Then the next layer of the circle is the circle of friendship. This includes our good friends and allies, the people we call when we have good news, vent to when we fight with a family member, laugh with, and invite to our birthday parties. Then in the next layer, they have the circle of participation. This includes the people we participate in shared interests with, the people with whom we interact in our community, work, classes, and clubs. And then the final circle is the circle of exchange. This includes people we pay or who pay us, including doctors, rideshare drivers, therapists, housekeepers, and hairstylists and bosses. So what's interesting about this is that, again, someone with ADHD doesn't properly build on relationships and they tend to skip areas. That's why it's very hard for us to maintain long-term close friends, because it's just we're immediately info dumping and immediately like, we're going to be best friends right now, and we're skipping.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because for me, I feel like it's almost the opposite. So like I'm like the king of small talk. I'm the king of.
We should do an episode on that.
We should. I'm kind of like I can carry on a conversation with anybody about any surface level topic that you'd like, and kind of be okay with that. And then for me, it's like I'm guarding the inner part of the circle. Like, you know, as you get closer to the core, which the center, like you said, is intimacy. Like, I'm typically, like, very selective of who I let in because I'm, you know, naturally someone with OCPD, you want to control your emotions. Mm-hmm. And part of controlling your emotions is typically not showing them and not talking about them. And that's, like, something that I've worked on a lot. But again, I still personally only will do it with a very small set. Well, I will do it with Jen in a very small set.
Well, even back
friends.
then, even like when you were
sometimes
a teenager,
not even with Jen. Let's be honest, back in the day.
Yeah, with me, but even like with your friends, you would always have surface level conversations. Like he would never talk about his true feelings about something, or what makes him upset, or what makes him like, you know, really happy. Like it was just like very much like TV shows, movies, topics that you would talk about with, you know, anybody really.
Yeah. But then when you live that surface level, then it's like you don't really realize the benefits of having some really good friends around you who can listen and offer support or sometimes literally, like I said, just listen. But it's a big step for you to take that like next step closer to your friendship circle. I really like that diagram a lot.
Next, we're going to talk about the struggles that people with ADHD have in their friendships. I'm going to start off with another quote from the same book. It says, if I was going to weave friendship into my main storyline, I needed to know why it was worth the effort, the potential rejection, and the uncertainty. With that quote, it's very important to understand the why behind friendships, especially for ADHD. because to be honest, friendship is work, just like marriage is, right? You kind of, there's a give and take. You have to give a piece of yourself. They have to give a piece of them to you. And you cannot be selfish. As an ADHD person, my thing is in my head, what's easier for me? Oh, stay in my home. That's easier. I can't get hurt if I'm home. I can't, no one can bother me the less people I interact with. I'm keeping myself safe and I'm hidden in my own home because it's my safe space, right? And so being aware of the impact that a friendship, a true friendship, can have on your life, the positive impact, if you're aware of that as an ADHD person, there's your drive to leave the house and go visit that friend, try to meet for coffee, send them that text, because you know that a true friendship is worth it.
So did you find it hard to make friends growing up living with ADHD? I know you weren't officially diagnosed until later, but looking back, do you feel like that was an issue?
I had a really tough time in, I want to say, elementary school, and even when I transferred to the school that I went to with him, and trying to get people to like me is all I cared about. Trying to fit in, even though I wasn't like many that were around me. That was difficult. What about you?
For me, I think that similar to like always being comfortable with small talk, I also feel like I was able to be a chameleon like adapter to friends. So
okay.
I could almost adapt to different situations. Like I could talk about sports with one set of friends, and entertainment with another set of friends, and kind of always compartmentalize the different friendships and the different interests that each group had.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that also is because I probably had a variety of different interests, but
you did.
Yeah, it was interesting. I wonder if other people who are listening relate to that, because like I feel like people can probably think about that with their work friends versus their friends from high school, and they probably have a much different dynamic one from the other.
It's interesting hearing you say that, because now I'm getting like my That's So Raven flashbacks, even though she technically has flash forwards because she can tell the future. I've been doing this wrong the last couple episodes.
Oh my gosh.
So I need to think of like someone that does flashbacks. I don't know. Back to the Future.
Yeah.
So basically he said he's a chameleon, right? And he does that with ease. I think I, growing up, truly forced myself into being a chameleon, and that's in masking. So it's like assessing the people around me and what their likes and interests are and what people think is weird, and then just forming into that. I also didn't have many hobbies and interests that anybody had in the school. I collected stamps. Okay. I collected rocks and I painted them with nail polish and named them. Okay. I had a magazine called Jen's World magazine.
Oh, you had your own magazine. You were the editor-in-chief.
I was an editor-in-chief of my magazine, and I had a theme song for it. And it was like, Jen's World, totally excellent. Jen's
Sounds very familiar, almost like you ripped off another duo.
Making this ransom note of a magazine, which is basically I took other magazines and cut out the best parts of them and then made my own magazine and cut out the letters, and it looked like a ransom note. Anyway, want to say in school I had like maybe one or two very close friends in school. Maybe one. Which is like, I don't know, it's kind of sad because I know that when I started dating him, he was the popular guy. He was the drummer, and a lot of people knew him, and he brought me into a whole new world, like Aladdin, except he wasn't a street rat.
I dressed like one though.
No, he didn't. It was, I don't know. It was really, I'm grateful for you because I was able to kind of venture out and be a little bit more vocal and social when I wasn't before.
Yeah, and then you helped me be more open and vulnerable.
And weird.
So, moving on, what areas do you struggle in as a friend because you have ADHD?
Yeah, there's a lot of areas, just as in every other aspect of a relationship and friendship, it's the same. We forget a lot. We forget birthdays. We forget special events.
Text messages.
We forget text messages. We don't reach out if we're in like ADHD paralysis and we just can't like function or do anything and we're just in shutdown mode. We don't text our friends for weeks, months even. And that can be really hard on a friendship.
Or then you may flood them with a series of text messages after not texting them for a while.
Yes.
You could also kind of like totally go all in on having a friendship.
Yeah. And like another issue too is that like if it's a new friendship when it's someone with ADHD, they come on a little strong. And once the newness wears off, then they kind of go back to like, what is it called?
Baseline.
Like baseline. So like ADHD people tend to just be a little bit extra. And so eventually they come down to baseline. And that's hard on a friendship too, because then that person on the other end is like, oh my gosh, like, do they not like me anymore? Do they not, want to be my friend? And that's not the case. Because, I would communicate that, but I think it's hard for the person on the other side to really feel like seen and heard sometimes.
Well, it also depends on if you know about your diagnosis or not.
That's true.
Like, again,
that's true.
In your story, if you knew earlier, you could explain ahead of time, like, hey, I got ADHD, so I'm going to text you for 2 weeks straight. And it's okay if you I invite you to follow up with me, right? Like, you might just be vocal and say, like, send a follow-up text being like, hey, just making sure you saw this previous one. Or you might just say, like, hey, wait until I respond. So there's stuff you could do if you know.
And to end off the struggles with ADHD topic, I have a quote. I'm going to have Joe read it for you. It's from How to ADHD.
Gladly. The quote says, while we have a lot to offer, our noticeable ADHD symptoms can make it harder for us to socialize in a world that stigmatizes them. We're fidgety, we're impulsive, we have trouble waiting our turn and staying focused on activities that don't interest us, we keep forgetting everyone's name, and because ADHD is neurodevelopmental disorder, most of us grew up out of step with our peers. We might have gotten along okay with kids 2 to 3 years younger than us or those older than us, but we seemed immature and lacked the self-regulation skills to stick to the social rules our peers were already able to follow. This is really interesting. I did not know that someone with ADHD felt like they could relate more with the younger crowd or the older crowd, and they kind of felt always a step behind from their current kind of like age group.
Yeah.
But I want to touch on one of the first sentence where it says the ADHD symptoms can make it harder to socialize because the world stigmatizes them. And I think that's a really interesting one because externally, some of the symptoms can make you look like a bad friend, just straight up, because you maybe didn't answer or follow through on something, or you forgot to meet someone somewhere, or write down an appointment or something like that. Same thing with like the fidgety impulsiveness, like you may want to jump in on a conversation and take it in a whole other direction. So yeah, I definitely can empathize with this. Like, it seems like unless you're aware of why you're doing this stuff, it can seem like just to be a big struggle for someone with ADHD to maintain like a ongoing, friendship with somebody.
Yeah.
One of the things we wanted to talk about is the topic of ADHD masking and how it affects you and your friendships. But I personally don't know what ADHD masking is, and I'm sure others don't. So what is ADHD masking?
ADHD masking is, like I said before, where you said you're a chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
it's that. So it's like, but in a sense, you're where you are the chameleon, and it's like you're hiding behind it. You know what I mean? Like you were saying chameleon in a sense that you have so many interests that matches everybody,
exactly.
but it's still Joe Coyote.
Yeah. So mine, I wouldn't call myself masking because I'm actually genuinely interested in talking about a variety and an eclectic set of topics, whereas a masker is someone who's like, I can't be my true self.
You cannot be your true self, and you are hidden behind a mask, and it's kind of like you're just waiting to be the host of your own body again. And it's rough because it depends on the people that you're around. There's certain situations where I have to mask how I am and just be like, okay, don't fidget, don't make loud noises, don't interrupt, stay quiet. You know, and then even like when I'm having conversations with people, I'm like, make eye contact, don't be creepy about it. Now you're staring too much, look away a little bit.
Well, come to think about it, that must be a nightmare for job interviews. Now that I was just thinking, like I'm sure some people with ADHD, if you're in a job interview, you really got to keep that in check, like because usually they're asking you questions, then you have a dialogue, and if your mind's going elsewhere, like you can really get off track. So that's really interesting. I'm wondering, like, is ADHD masking, based on the stuff that you've read, is it sometimes appropriate, or is this a completely negative thing, or is it sometimes a good thing?
Well, it's interesting. Sometimes it's intentional, and sometimes it's unintentional. It depends on who you're around and who you're comfortable with.
Okay.
So if I'm in certain circles or at a party and you see that I'm in the same spot the entire time and I have not moved, I'm not in I don't feel comfortable. So therefore I'm 9 times out of 10 masking in that environment.
Okay.
Like I'm immobile and I'm just going to pretend like I'm a normal human right now. But I have a quote here, which is a note on masking, which was, it hit close to home. It says, leveling up your social skills does not mean learning how to mask your neurodivergence 24/7. Masking for a long period of time is damaging to our emotional and mental well-being because it requires suppressing behaviors that help us cope with the world not built with our needs in mind. While masking can help us fit in, it does not lend itself to deep, meaningful, long-term relationships. Masking our neurodivergence so much that we can't find each other leaves us lonely and disconnected. What we want to aim for is interfacing effectively with others. Or as Brené Brown puts it, learn how to be present with people without sacrificing who we are. That last quote got me in the gut because it's just, I sacrifice often. I've sacrificed for the majority of my life, I would say, who I was.
It's like you're an undercover agent. You got to be like,
oh my gosh, I'm so cool. It makes it sound so much cooler.
No, I know, but I'm just thinking, I'm thinking of the video game analogies, right? Like, 007 or something like that.
Oh, wait, you know what's interesting? I love playing as a rogue in D&D. And rogues are like, like Assassin's Creed. Like, they're very much like in the shadows, sneaky sneak. So I was just like, the real me was dormant. But I feel like as of, I want to say, the last 3 or 4 years, I've been able to discover my true identity. Who is Jen? Not the person masking, not the person trying to be other people, not the person trying to impress someone so that they'll like her more. Who's Jen at her core?
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
One more topic that we wanted to cover before we go into more solutions is conflict and rejection sensitivity in friendships for an ADHD person. So how does an ADHD person get through conflict? How do they communicate conflict in a healthy way? And how do they just manage that? So what do you have for that?
Yeah, so in general, in conflict, it's really rough with ADHD. It's like, because we do struggle with something called RSD, which in long, it's rejection sensitive dysphoria. And I'll just read off like what I put here. It is when you experience severe emotional pain because of a failure or feeling rejected. This condition is linked to ADHD, and experts suspect it happens due to differences in brain structure. Those differences mean your brain can't regulate rejection-related emotions and behaviors, making them much more intense. So when we feel really hard, and when someone hurts us, it takes like a physical, like it affects us severely.
So it's heightened. And it sounds like...
And it's not like in the cool way in Vampire Diaries.
No.
And
it sounds like if someone with ADHD has RSD, not only is it heightened, but since you're meeting it with such a, like, large reaction, that could lead to, like, either cutting somebody off from your life or you know, really getting aggressive in your reaction. So... That's really interesting.
Or sad. It doesn't have to be aggression. It
True.
could just be like, I'm really depressed right now over the situation. Or, you know, it has a lot of anxiety added to it. But I've learned, like, recently how to properly manage conflict. I haven't had many, I want to say, friendship fights. But I would say, based off my experience from, like, I guess, like a recent one, I think I handled myself very well, and I didn't blow up. I didn't call names. I didn't gaslight. I just spoke my truth and said, you know, how I feel, and just understanding and empathizing and apologizing for my part in things, and just putting my ego aside. Because at the end of the day, if I care about someone, I'm going to see them hurt by something that I did, or they did something that hurt me, and just, like, understand it. And if this is someone that you care about, you move on. And not only do you move on, but you change. And I think that's why communication in friendships is really important, because with someone with ADHD, they've got a lot of tabs open. So they don't know if something they did hurt you in any way. And if you don't tell them, you can't fix it. And it just festers. And I think that I am grateful that I had I want to say, like, my first ever positive experience from a friendship argument. It was refreshing to see that someone cared enough to meet me in the middle.
I imagine, though, that this also applies to, like, family and growing up. Like, someone with ADHD and RSD, they may have similar reactions to, like, family and family members and that whole dynamics. And I think whether it is your family or friends, let's jump into some solutions, because, you know, I don't want us to just throw out, like,
the negativity.
Yeah, the negativity. You have ADHD and
we're friendless losers. Don't die.
I'm dying.
You want some water?
No, I got some. Okay. I think that might be the title. We're friendless losers. But why don't you walk us through some solutions on how you could be a better friend despite the struggles?
Well, I wrote down some examples. So one of them is keeping your calendar up to date with the events and birthdays. So I'm terrible with this. I think I've come to the conclusion it's still a work in progress, but I need to have it, like, tangibly, like, on, what is it called? Analog?
Physical.
On
a notebook.
And then I need to have it on every device. I need to have it on Google Calendar. I need to have it on Apple Calendar. I need to have it on everything, and just have, like, alerts go off. Be like, oh, it's so-and-so's birthday, or in 2 days you have this event. Don't forget. Just being consistent with that, because, you know, it's rough out there when you forget your friend's birthday. It's not nice, and I don't want to be that. And I'm trying my best. I'm trying to be better at that. And then I put here as well, reminders to reach out to people that are important to you. So if you realize that you have like a set few of friends that are in your intimate circle, right? They're your closest ones that you really want to maintain. Reach out to them every once in a while. It doesn't have to be every day, but I think putting a reminder in your watch, like, have you texted so-and-so? Have you checked up on them? And I do that from time to time. Like if I'm realizing, oh, like I haven't like, spoken much in the group chat, like let me let everyone know that I hope that they have a good week, or ask them if they're having a good week, or when can we see each other next. Just showing people that I haven't forgotten about them is important, because again, we forget.
And these are really good tips even for non-ADHD people, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, it's so funny. There's this, when I drive our daughter to school, there's this sign that we passed that someone put up, and it was like, have you called your mother today? And it's just funny, but it's like,
have you?
Today, no, but I texted her. I could show the proof.
I called.
So, but yeah, it's similar. Like maybe having a reminder prompt that literally says like, have you reached out to the people that you care about the most lately? That's
true. I should do that with like a family too. I think I'm just, it's complicated with family sometimes, just on my end, just because of like just unresolved hurt and dysfunction. So I'm just working on reaching out despite that. But with friendships, I think it's a lot easier for me to reach out more often because there's not a lot of like history there. Another way you can be a better friend despite your struggles is to listen more and be empathetic. I'm thinking back of conversations I've had throughout being like a teenager and in college. And I remember people would tell me things and I, in my head, was thinking about either something else, or I was thinking about what I was going to say in response so that they would think I was cool or funny or interesting or had something to bring to the table, versus really taking in what they're saying, listening to them, and asking them questions about it so that they can talk more. Because it's just, I feel like people in general, people like to hear themselves talk. They do. And
I do.
Yes, he loves it. But what I'm saying is that to show a friend that not only are you listening, but you're hearing them, like you're really empathizing with them and you're coming up with something other than, bro, that's crazy. Like, that's wild. Like, oh my gosh. Like, that's it. That's all you brought to the table, and they just told you an entire crazy, like, story, you know, and poured out their heart, and all you've got is like, I'm sorry, bro. That was literally, that was you. But back in the day, we'd be like, I'm sorry this is happening to you. And that was it. But now he's like, he's got insights. He's got things to say. It's like he's Yoda in 2024.
All right. I wouldn't call myself Yoda.
But you're great to talk to. Instead of back then, it was as if, like, you know, it was just as if I
had a prepared statement. I was like, I'm sorry for the feelings that you are having.
You were like, I can't compute anything you're saying, but I apologize you had them. But again, there's some people that are like that, and that's fine. But again, just to, I don't know, to have that one friend that's like listening to you and then having a rebuttal on what you just said, like, oh my gosh, like, so what else did you try? Or how did that make you feel? Or like, what are your next steps? Instead of being like, oh, that reminds me of the time that I did this. And your story reminds me of this thing that happened to me. And like, I can totally relate to you. Me and you are the same. We're going through the same thing. No, listen to them, hear them, empathize, like be that shoulder for them. And then they can be that for you in the future. And yes, I'm not saying you can't say anything. Eventually you can talk about it, but I'm just saying, just being a little bit more patient in conversations instead of immediately jumping to, I can relate to this.
Yeah. And that flows well into the next one, which is be honest about your struggles and set up the right expectations. So, what do you mean by setting up the right expectations when you talk about being honest with your struggles?
Yeah. So before, I would show up late to things and I would say, "Oh, I'm leaving in 5 minutes. Oh, I left right now. I'll be there in 10 minutes. I'm not going to be late at all," even though I know 100% I'm going to be late to go to an event. Or I used to get overwhelmed from getting a ton of text messages from someone. So I went from responding to like ghosting and not responding at all because I was overwhelmed by the amount of texts I was getting at once. And so I just shut down. So now, like, I feel like I did this like recently, maybe last year. I voiced this person like, "Hey, just so you know, when I get a ton of text messages at once, it's very overwhelming for me. My work is my phone, and also I'm in multiple group chats for friends and family, and it's just, my phone is kind of like a scary thing. And sometimes I just don't want to. I just want to escape and be like Ron Swanson when he threw his computer in the dumpster and just went off to his cabin in the woods. I feel like that. And I think what was great is that I was worried that this person would take offense, but this person appreciated my honesty and in my struggles. And even with on Sundays, like we both serve on the worship team, and there were some Sunday mornings where my PCOS was really, really bad, or I would be like, because of the PCOS, my mental health would be really low, or I'll have like really, really bad anxiety. And instead of saying anything, I would go and push through it. And then it would be detrimental to me by the time I got home. I was broken. Or I would just be like, "Oh, like, I can't, I'm coming down with something or something." But now I'm just like, you know what? I'm having anxiety. I'm having really bad mental health. I'm not feeling it. My back is out. Like I have PCOS. So this condition comes with X, Y, and Z. And just be honest. Like just say, "Hey, you know what? I'm feeling really low." If a friend texts you and is like, "Oh, can you come to this? Can you come to that?" I'm struggling right now. And I appreciate you reaching out. And just know that I'm just in this lull. But to have patience with me and understand that it's not you, it's just me. I know that's like a cliche, but it's true. Just communicating is actually like, it's refreshing. Once you do it once, you don't stop. And that's what I've been doing nonstop, is just being like, you know what? I'm not lying anymore. I'm not masking. I'm going to tell everyone exactly what I'm going through. And if it makes them uncomfortable, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that.
And then this last one is an ADHD superpower that I have seen in action. And it's scary because it feels very much, I know we've talked about it in the past, like X-Men superpowers.
Yeah.
This one definitely feels like it. I don't know if every ADHD person has this, or if this is just something that Jen has. But this last one is being socially aware if your friend is going through something. Now, before you even talk.
I'm not talking.
I know, but I'm prefacing it before you even talk. I've had Jen come into the room to me when we're home alone, just me and her, and she goes, "I think this person's going through something. I'm going to reach out to them." I'm like, "Jen, you haven't seen this person like in a couple of days."
Yeah.
I'm like, "I don't even know if you've texted with them recently." I don't know, just my last interaction, I got a glimpse. And then Jen will reach out to them, and lo and behold, they're literally like, "I don't know how you do." But yes, I am going through something, and thank you for reaching out.
It's scary.
But yeah, maybe expand on this, like being socially aware and then using this in your friendships.
I think just basically I think it might be an ADHD thing because we have such strong feelings and our empathy is very strong. So you have to keep in mind, we're professional at masking, right? Mm-hmm. So in order to mask, you have to understand the people you're around. You have to study them. You have to study their inflections. You have to study their eyesight, their different people. This is why people are professionals at telling whether someone is lying or not, just by what they do
body
in their
language.
by body language.
Yeah,
and so
true.
Because of my years and years and years of masking and trying to mimic others and be the chameleon and push Jen down, I'm able to read the room. Like,
maybe you missed an opportunity. You could have worked for like law enforcement as one of those, because some people are human lie detectors. They don't even need to use the test.
That would be cool. But like the thing is that 9 times out of 10, like if you know me and you've spoken to me and you're feeling like either A, something's off, B, you don't really want to talk to me right now. C, you don't even like me. Whatever it is, or I'm annoying you or I'm talking too much, it's on your face and I know automatically. And so I either walk away or I end the conversation or whatever have you. But I'm thinking about it later on. I'm like, I wonder what that was.
Jen's too good with it when it's for me. She's got every facial pattern on me, and it's like,
well, of course, like we live together.
I've tried to mask it though, and she'll be like, no.
Yeah. Or even if someone's, I don't know if I've told you this, but like even if someone's talking to him, right? I know what the person is feeling while they're talking to him, whether or not they like the conversation, whether or not it's genuine, whether or not they'd rather be somewhere else. And then they switch over talking to me, and I'm like, oh, interesting. Your whole demeanor changed. You spoke to him and then you spoke to me, and now it's the vibes are off.
Yeah.
And I will say that having this ability is a blessing and a curse, but I want to say it's mostly a blessing because I want to be that for someone. Like I like it would be, I think I have like a friend of mine now that knows if I'm like, just by, she'll call me and I'm like, hello. And she's like, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? What happened? And all I said was hello. So I think because she's also neurospicy, I think we just kind of have that gift. But it's just, I want to be that for someone. I want to be that person that's like, hey, like, I know you're probably not going to tell anyone what you're going through because you don't want to be a burden and you don't want to take up space. But just know that you can take up space and you're not a burden. And maybe that friend telling you like, hey, like I see you and we're here for you. That I don't know. I think that really like makes my day that I'm able to be that for someone if they don't have that from anyone else.
Yeah. So we wanted to end off with a quote.
Yeah.
Again, all quotes today were pulled from the book called How to ADHD.
Please buy this book
by Jessica McCabe.
It's so good.
Jen, this book came out like after we filmed the first few episodes, and now Jen can't put it down. But the quote says, "Lots of hurdles can get in the way of a budding friendship. Time constraints, stress from life events, scheduling logistics. Life is complicated. All we can really control is whether we engage in that circle of participation often enough to give a potential friend a chance to become an actual friend."
Yeah.
I like that. Potential friend, actual friend, because that's what it really always starts out with.
Yeah.
There's this potential person that could be your friend, and like
a real friend.
But it's like you both need to put in the time, both the ADHD person and the person who is, your friend.
Yeah.
You got to put in the work, you got to put in the time, and, odds are that they will become your actual friend. Yeah. That's great.
I think that like, even without ADHD, like this quote is relatable. Life happens. And if you've got kids and you're married and like, there's different events that occur, I think putting in the work is so important, and recognizing how much value friendships in your life bring. And I think oh my gosh, am I getting misty-eyed? I'm getting a little misty-eyed.
Please. Please.
Wow, this is weird. This is not in the script. I'm very grateful for the friendships that I have. I didn't have them before like this. So it makes a big difference on someone's mental health, especially with ADHD, because, the world's not built for you and it's like a struggle, and you just feel like you're just like living in someone else's skin because you're trying so hard to fit in and
working so hard to work through your struggles just to meet everyone at eye level. And I think just having a good support system and people that you can talk to and hang out with and have similar interests and just, I think it's just such a big blessing in my life and our life. So I'm just like, why am I getting emotional?
No, because I think we've had friends who taken a genuine interest in you and me. Some of them are mutual friends, but when you take a genuine interest and you learn about the struggles of somebody and how they operate, and you really care about that person, it means a lot to the other person. And I think especially it means a lot to ADHD folks who have had this struggle throughout their life. So that's really beautiful. Yeah. That is going to wrap up our episode, Your Life as a Video Game, Part 2, Multiplayer Mode Friendships. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you were able to take away something from it and incorporate this into your life.
And stay tuned for the next part in our Your Life as a Video Game series. Next week, we'll be discussing the glitches, quick saves, and crashes we have in our lives. This episode will focus on mental health and pulling through the hardest challenges that life throws at you.
Wow. I'm excited.
Me too.
We will talk to you all soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this week's episode.
You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at ADHD and Me Podcast.
Our theme song is by @It'sOfBo.
New episodes every Wednesday.
We will see you there, or we will see you on another time.